according to the schedule, this year was supposed to already be in Kuf Ayin Aleph. I'm not up to there. The next year is going to be in Kuf Ayin Aleph, Mitzvah Hashem, on Tuesday. I want to finish Kuf Samach Daled and a little bit from Kuf Samach Zayin. So the first half of Kuf Samach Daled is about the responsibilities of each one to another when they are still, the house is still in place or something, parts of it break. Sif Hey Vaita starts what happens after the whole thing falls down. So you have a Baal Abayis and a Baal Aliyah, you have the guy living downstairs, you have the guy living upstairs, and the house fell. It's done. Now you have a pile of rocks, stones, wood, empty space. You have to rebuild. They're both owners in the land to a certain degree, certain percentages, and they both need a house. Now, for the guy upstairs to be able to build his floor, he needs the guy downstairs to go first. So, Sif Hey is that discussion about what happens when one person asks the other one. The guy upstairs comes to the guy downstairs and tells him, listen, the house fell down. I need you to pick up put up your first floor. And that way I'll be able to put the second floor on top of it. The guy upstairs cannot force the guy downstairs to put out money to build a house. That's the halach. But he's a place to live. And he has rights to the land. So he could build the first floor from his own money. And then he could live there. He could stay there, he could live there until he gets paid. Until the guy who was supposed to be there, was supposed to build it, pays him his whole outlay. And then, once that is done, the guy upstairs has a right. He's not obligated to build the second floor. He has a right, if he gets paid everything back, he has a right to then go and build the second floor on top. Same thing if the guy downstairs just builds it, and the guy upstairs doesn't want to build it. The guy upstairs can decide if he wants to build it or not.
Once the downstairs guy pays the upstairs guy living in the house downstairs, can you kick him out?
What? Yeah. Once he pays him for all his outlay, he throws him out. Yeah, because he has no right to be on the first floor. The question is, why is it that over here, the guy upstairs cannot force the guy downstairs to build? In the past, we see that the person who's downstairs, if something happened to one of the walls downstairs, the person upstairs could tell him to fix it and force him to fix it. So why over here, there's no kfiyah, so to speak. There's no koifenoisoi to build it, to spend his own money. So that is what the kasha of the Rashba is. The Rashba, the Maggid Mishnah brings it, and the Taz brings the kasha of the Maggid Mishnah, and the Maggid Mishnah says it's simply because the owner is not here. The first floor guy is not here. You can't go and take his money against his will. But if he would be here, the Maggid Mishnah understands the Rambam that you are able to do koifen even in this case, which is rebuilding it. However, the Rashba disagrees with it. And the Rashba we mentioned a few times already in Siman Kuf Samach Daled. The Rashba says that there is no shi'abud of the person or his money to the other person. The person downstairs is not meshubad. Huh? The Rashba. The Maggid Mishnah holds that the Rambam, that based on the Rambam you could do it. And there's a machlekes how to where the Ramban fits into. There's a machlekes how to understand the Rambam also. For the first Beis Yosef, or the second Beis Yosef, there's a disagreement where to put the Rambam. Where does the Rambam fit into it? And the Darkei Moshe also goes into it. It means it's not so clear where the Rambam goes. But the Rashba is pretty clear that you're not koy for him. the Taz says that he doesn't understand why the Beis Yosef chose one place to go based on Kofen and one place not go on Kofen. Why in the place where it's only a wall he says Kofen, and in the place where it's in this case where the whole house collapses you don't say Kofen. L'chayra, there should be the same din in both. Not like the Smeh understands the Mechaber, and not like simple reading of the Mechaber that it's different. The Smeh explains why it's different. But the Taz says, no, I don't see why it's different. It has nothing to do with if the guy's here, you want to follow that. If the din of Kfir applies, it should apply Sai for the wall falling and Sai for the house falling. There should be no difference between the two. So if so, what is this if talking about? The Taz says it's obvious that if he wants to, he could be koy for him. Elamai. Over here, he doesn't want to be koy for him. He has the right to be koy for him. He doesn't want to be koy for him. He prefers, instead of going through the headache of going to Bezdin and dragging him and forcing him to pay for it, he's like, listen, you want to pay for it? Good. You don't want to pay for it? It's fine. I'll build it and I'll live here. Means what the Mechaber is saying is, you have an alternative to avoid the Kfir. You don't have to run right away to Kfir. That's how the Taz explains it. The Taz takes it that there is a concept of Kfir. If he wants to be koifer, he could be koifer. But in this case, he doesn't want to be koifer. So if he doesn't want to be koifer, you can't force him to be koifer. Now, what happens if it's the other way around? Yeah? Well, I mentioned it before, but this is the Mishnah actually writes it clearly. If the guy downstairs wants to build and the guy upstairs doesn't want to build, so you can't force him. Yeah, so now, what is he going to do? He needs a roof over his head, the guy downstairs. He goes into machlokes we have before, whether the tikra is the responsibility of the guy upstairs, the tikra is the responsibility of the guy downstairs. Let's say if you follow the opinion the tikra is the responsibility of the guy upstairs, and now what's going to happen with the guy downstairs? He could build a house, but he's going to be like a sukkah. Open air. So if he's in the desert, well, it's not going to rain. But if it's in another place, he needs to be able to have a roof over his head. So the Nesiva says, very simple, he will build his own roof on top of it, and then he could stay there and not allow the guy upstairs to rebuild his second floor until the guy pays him for the roof.
Reason why the top guy has to build the roof because the bottom guy already has the top guy's roof.
Yeah, but this is where the Avnei Choshen comes in to explain what is this talking about with Nesivus. Because Nesivus says the bottom guy pays it. So Avnei Choshen says, obviously we're talking about in our countries where there is a roof on top of your ceiling, not in the times where the Mechaber maybe lived in places which maybe didn't need it. The Rishonim lived in places where you could just put one layer. So he says that's what we're talking about over here, and that's where it kicks in. That he could tell him, he could essentially force him to either build or pay up for this secondary roof because he can't live without it. And he says, Avnei Choshen says that be'etzem there's a svara to say, and he's noted to say that svara, that if the guy downstairs builds, the guy upstairs doesn't want to build, he could be koy for him to build the whole upstairs. Why? He tells him, the house needs a roof. The tikra between us is not enough. So now, if I'm going to go and I'm going to spend money on something, you're going to go and you're going to pay me, but even if you're going to pay me, it's going to be a big hefsed because you're not going to gain anything from it. So we're going into a shaila, do you actually have to pay me or not? Because Mela, when the guy downstairs builds, the guy upstairs builds the house downstairs, and the guy downstairs pays for it and gets everything. But when the guy downstairs builds a roof, and then the guy upstairs comes, he's going to come to Bez and he's going to say, I don't understand why I have to pay for it. It's not my responsibility. I'm not gaining anything from it. For me to build my second floor, I actually have to remove this whole fancy roof that you just put up, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, whatever, depending which kind of roof you do and where you build it and how big it is, and I'm gaining nothing out of it. It's money in the garbage. So that's what Avnei Choshen says. Be'etzem, you could, in our Medina Yisenu, you could be koifa. He follows the shit of the Taz, not like this man. He says, you could be koifa. And he adds it on top of the Nesivus, because the Nesivus says that he could do it in charge. And Avnei Choshen says, be'etzem, he could be koifa. And the mashmos of the Avnei Choshen is that according to the Nesivus would be that what the Nesivus is talking about is if the guy doesn't want to be koifa, the guy upstairs, he could probably put something up and then go and charge him, and then go and charge him for it. But he's essentially, even though he's adding on to the Nesivus, he's really arguing on the Nesivus. He's the way he concludes arguing on the Nesivus. There's no shibud. According to the Rashba, there's no shibud. And the Mechaber is pretty clearly, not according to the Taz, but according to the סימן, according to the Nesivus, the Mechaber over here paskins that there is no shibud.
So if upstairs guy, the Baal just wants to move along with his life and never come back.
Never come back, but he has the ownership rights in the land. He wants to hold on.
Or he has a shibud to build an attic on his house.
He has no shibud to build an attic.
No, not shibud to build an attic. He has the rights to build an attic.
He has the right to build at any point, yeah.
So say he wants to waive those rights because he doesn't want to build a roof.
He doesn't want to build it ever again. He wants to sell it to him.
Walk away.
And then just give it to him as a present? No, I mean, tinus. Nobody says no to a present.
Well, the roof might be more expensive than the...
No. The land is worth more than the roof. That's for sure. If your roof costs more than what the land that you're building it on, then you're in a much bigger problem than this.
You can force him to build that.
You can force him to build, yeah. According to the Taz, you can...
Walk away.
Huh?
I can't just walk away.
No, I could walk away from the whole deal. I could say I'm no longer an owner over here.
Even in the ground.
And the ground and everything. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
That's what he's asking. That's what David's asking. If a guy says, I'm out. I'm moving on with my life. It's not worth it for me. The value of the land that I have over here is not worth it for me to invest money in it.
Well, let's say it's matana, right? Maybe you could be...
It's very Kenyan in the matana.
Maybe I can say I don't want the matana.
How is that? I don't want the matana. He's not losing anything from taking the matana. He's gaining full title to the land, and all he has to do is spend $20,000 on the roof that he would anyways do. According to the Nesivus, he would anyways do it, and he would be able to send the bill. According to the other one, he would have to drag him to Bezdin and pull the sheriffs and force him to pay, and it'd still be hard. So he's going to spend money anyways. The question is how much. So he's getting a benefit out of it. So I don't say why he would not do it. Now, he sits over there, and he could live there until he gets paid, until he gets repaid everything that he has to get repaid. Then the Sivus adds over there in Sivkot Yud Aleph that he could rent it out to somebody else. That means the guy upstairs that built the first floor, he wants to recoup his investment. He could then go and rent it out to somebody else. And then Sivus adds, or even to the owner himself. Rent it back to the owner himself. And he could take the payment until he recoups his loss. And then the Sivus says there's no din of ribis. It doesn't really explain exactly why there's no ribis. There's no derech halva over here. It's not derech halva. It's not a shayla of ribis. Why is that? Because he entered the property be'al korchoy. Yeah, and same nikud is also brought in the Ktsas. And if you look in the Shoshanas Yaakov in the Blue Book, you're going to see he goes through the whole Nesivus, the Ktsas, and the סימן discusses if there is a shayla of ribis or not. The Knesset Agdela is noitel isur over here and says no. You can't rent it to somebody else. You can't even rent it to somebody else because it's a safek ribis. Why? Because what you built, you have a right to live there until you get paid. When you're renting it to somebody else, you're gaining an extra benefit out of it. But to live there until you receive payment, that's not considered ribis. Where is that? That's in the סימן. The סימן explains that. He says why? Because the karka, part of the karka, is also meshubah to the second floor owner. He's part owner in the land, and therefore it's also meshubah to the aliyah. And since the Baal Abayis is the owner of the first floor, anyway, he's not living here. Therefore, the fact that you're getting Hanoi from living there is not considered ribis. Why is that? The Aruch HaShulchan gives a little bit of a understanding, a little bit different of it. He says, at the end of the day, zenene v'zelei chaser. The guy who owns upstairs, and now he built the house downstairs, and he's living downstairs, and he's not living, and he's not moving, he's living downstairs. He's gaining hanoi from it, but it's a hanoi that the other person will not be able to have until he pays for it. So it's fine. The Divrei Mishpat goes and develops it a little bit more, this concept, and he says, with introduction, we have a halacha that a malveh cannot live in the house of a loive. Yeah? I borrow money from you. I can't host you in my house. Can't give you free lodging in my house. Why? It's ribis. Looks like ribis. It's mechzik ribis. The same thing is, if I have a chotzer and I borrowed money from you, I can't have you living in my chotzer for that reason. It's only a day of סימן Vav. And the halach is of ribis. So the Divrei Mishpat says, so why over here the guy upstairs could live in the house downstairs the whole time? So he says, because it's totally in din me'akev. Could I block you or not? What does that mean? When I borrow money from you, and I have a chotzer, in general, I could tell you, I don't want you to live in my chotzer. For whatever reason, either because I want to rent it out, or for whatever reason it is, I could block you from living in my chotzer. So because I could block you from living in my chotzer, if I let you live in my chotzer, I'm giving you something extra. Because I could block you, because I could be ma'akev you, so by me letting you stay, I'm giving you something extra. And therefore it's nirek ribis. It's not mamish ribis, but it's nirek ribis. Why? Because why would I not want you to live in my property? I could rent it out to somebody else and make money. The fact is, I'm not renting it out. Me as the loive, I'm not renting it out. Why? Because I'm giving it to you. Or I'm having expenses because I'm giving it to you, which means you're benefiting off me from something which I could have made money off, or I would have spent less money on. So you're gaining something from me, so it looks like ribis. Over here, it's not so. Being that the first floor owner didn't pay anything, it doesn't want to pay anything. The second floor owner goes and builds the first floor of the house. The guy who was supposed to be owning the first floor has no right to be ma'akev, the malveh, so to speak, we'll call him the malveh, the second floor owner, from living there, because he has to pay him before he can block him. That's the whole halacha over here. He can pay him. And therefore, and he also can't rent it to anybody else. He's not losing anything from it. He can't block the second floor owner from living in this house until he pays him everything. So if he can't block him from living there, there's also not a shayla of ribis. That's how he explains it. He just explains it. He says, he just goes and he explains that he develops the idea. He doesn't quote it from the Kesach, but he develops that idea.
One thing is that you can't go to live in his house.
Yeah. And one is you can't live in his chutzner.
He's saying that, in other words, he's learning that the whole problem of ribis in the case of Malva is because you can't really be in his house.
You can't, the whole problem, because you can't be ma'akev him. You could be ma'akev him.
Therefore, you could have gained the money.
You could be ma'akev him.
And therefore you could have gained money.
You could have gained money by renting it, and that's why it's mechzik ribis when you let him be there for free. Here you can't be ma'akev him. You can't block him from going into the house. You can't rent it out to anybody else because you have to pay. So there's no shayla of ribis, and he says it's zenen of zelech chaser, and he says, and because it's zenen of zelech chaser, if the guy downstairs, who's supposed to be downstairs, it means the original owner of the downstairs floor, would even have any way of blocking the guy upstairs from living in the first floor that he himself built before he's repaid, we made us dime, because there's no way that he could be chaser anything. Until he pays, he's not chassid anything. He can't be chassid anything because he has no rights to it until he pays for it. He has to fully pay for it before he has any rights to it. And he adds, the different Mishpat adds, he says, because if we wouldn't have this, the guy would never pay. The guy downstairs would never, the guy upstairs would never pay. The guy downstairs, who's supposed to be downstairs, would never pay the guy upstairs. If he could rent it out, if he could live there, there'd be nothing. He would just get a free house. So it was established that he has to be in such a way that he has no drissas regal, no enjoyment, zero. Even though he owns the land. He owns more land than the guy upstairs. Which that is in the next sif. In this sif. The Macharu continues, if they can't build, if one of them cannot build, or both of them cannot build, for whatever reason, they don't have the money for it, so they have to split the land. How do they split the land? The guy downstairs gets 2/3 of the land, the guy upstairs gets 1/3 of the land, and the Ramah adds that if they decide to sell the land, it has to be midas shneim, and they also divide it 2/3, 1/3.
Why is it 1/3?
So this is what the Smeh explains. And this is the Smeh of Yereduk says. He says a house without a second floor would last 90 years. This is from the Gemara. A house with a second floor, the weight that lays on the walls of the first floor makes it only last 60 years.
So the case is that we came together and bought real estate, right?
This is okay. We'll get to it in a second. And therefore, it's 2/3, 1/3. And he says, and if now this is all considering that. You look at it in the times of the Gemara, the way things were built. Obviously, if both of us go and buy one floor and the second floor, and originally it was done in such a way, I put half the money, you put half the money, or I paid the owner of the first floor this amount, you paid the owner of the second floor that amount, so it'll be divided based on whatever was paid. If a property is worth 1.5 or $2 million,
Time to go, there's no property worth.
Property was worth whatever the house on top of it was worth, or the land, how much you could plow it. It was measured, the value of land was measured by what you could plow in it. What would you need land for? Land for what? There's no bicycles, you don't ride horses, run around, people work, they have to eat. So if you have a house on top of a sand dune, you can't plant anything other than cactuses, so it's not worth as much as somebody who has a fertile land who could plant a lot more things over there. That's how
We both built a house, and I couldn't get the bottom floor, you could get the top. I chose to get the top.
No, I chose. No, I chose.
I paid less because of it?
Yeah,
Was that chila that you paid less?
yeah, for sure. Even today, you buy, not in frum neighborhoods, but in a regular place, yeah? So in Manhattan, La Marshall. The lower floors, sometimes a little bit less than the top floors. You're closer to the noise of traffic and you don't get such a nice view. All you see in front of you is bricks. Yeah, the higher floor, the penthouse is worth a lot more. The top floors on top of the traffic is worth a lot more. Until the guy across the street also builds it 100 floors. But until then, you have, it's a value over there. So there's different floors of different values. Also, you have to take one elevator, 2 elevators. There's an express elevator, it pops here, it doesn't pop here. There's a lot of different things that go into play the value of apartments, of the units, when it's shared. So when you have 2 floors, also there's a difference. If I have to go up the steps and every time, it's obviously worth a little bit less. So because of that, so you could look at it that way. If 2 people went into a deal, the house was sold for 1.5. One person bought the second house and paid 800. The second person paid 700 for the top floor. So the chayv, if they would sell it, the division of the assets would be based on that amount, based on that percentage. But why do you need das shneim? The Smeh explains you need das shneim. Why? Very simple. Because one person, yesh b'din chalukah. Not that that's in the Sibur, sorry. The Smeh says because each one could tell the other one, I'm not ready to sell now. Real estate appreciates in value. Yes, I cannot afford to rebuild now. But right now, there's high interest rates. And if we're going to wait a few months, or hopefully the president's going to change and we'll have the mini geula, and then everything is going to be good like it was in the past. And interest rates are going to drop, and I'll be able to sell it for more. Why should I sell it now? I want to hold on to it. So that's why I need a skama shneim. But why do you need a skama shneim? And the Sibus adds to it. He says, well, very simple. Yesh b'din chalukah. Talking about something yesh b'din chalukah, you can't say, you can't say good yagud, or you can't force the other person to sell. You need askama shneim to do it. Yeah, that is regarding forcing somebody to rebuild. Now what happens when they want to rebuild? They both agree that they want to rebuild. And now, nobody really wants to have the same thing that they had before. They want to expand, they want to make it bigger, they want to make it less, they want to spend more money, they want to spend less money. That's what the last few seifim of the Vav and Zayin deal with in the Siman. Yeah, so then Vav is basically if the guy downstairs wants to make bigger walls, heavier walls, he's allowed to. If he wants to make lighter walls than there was before, or thinner walls than it was before, he can't. If he wants to make his ceiling stronger, you listen to him, he's allowed to. If he wants to make his ceiling weaker, he's not allowed to. If he wants to add height to his first floor, so there used to be 8-foot ceilings, he wants to make a 10-foot ceilings, he's not allowed to. If he wants to add more windows, he's not allowed to. If he wants to lower the height, make it from 10 foot to 8 foot, he is allowed to. That's if Vav is regarding the guy downstairs wants to make changes. The guy upstairs wants to make changes. That's if Zion. If the guy upstairs wants to make changes, the guy upstairs could build the way he was. If he wants to make heavier walls, he's not allowed to. If he wants to make lighter walls, he is allowed to. If he wants to make his roof lighter, he's allowed to. If he wants to make his roof heavier, you're not allowed to. If he wants to add windows or to lower the height of the second floor from 10 foot to 8 foot, he's allowed to. If he wants to make less windows upstairs or add more height, he's not allowed to. This is the mechaber, basically. And so we're going to see the Smeh gives one klal that covers everything. We're going to see it in a second. And Rama adds to it, if it comes to changing the weight of the walls, only we're going to change the weight. It means changing the material of the walls, changing the upstairs or downstairs. You follow the minhag of the place. He says he says in the Tur in the name of the Raavad and the Rashba. Now, why do we have all these klalim? What's the general rule that occur across the board of everything? The Smeh says very simple. If the guy downstairs is going to make it weaker or any other thing that's going to cause the upstairs to be less strong than it was before, he's not allowed to do it. He's making a change, it's going to have an effect on the guy upstairs. That's the same reason why if the guy upstairs makes a change that's going to cause damage to the guy downstairs, he's also not allowed to do it. And the same thing if it causes the guy downstairs to go up more steps or whatever it is, it's also a problem. So therefore, we look at the sustainability of the place. If the guy upstairs wants to make it heavier than before, he's putting more weight than the guy downstairs. If the guy downstairs wants to make it lighter, he's causing the upstairs should be a problem. If the guy downstairs wants to add more windows, it makes it less structurally strong. If the guy upstairs wants to add more windows, it makes it less weight. So that's not you look at the weight factor. Essentially, most of it is weight factor, which is going to cause how long it's going to last or not. That's the reason why we have all these klalim when it comes to rebuilding, partnerships, rebuilding, how much each one could do. So what does this mean now? What does the Rama conclude that when it comes to weight, you follow them? And like the Smeh says, it's very simple. If you're talking about a place where everybody used to build with cedar wood, and now he wants to build with lighter wood. And the minhag in this town is that some people use cedar wood, the strong, expensive wood to make your foundations, to make your beams for the house. And other people could use a little bit lighter wood or less heavier wood. So yeah, it might creak a little bit more, it might sag a little bit more, but it holds the house. So shouldn't be a problem. That's the minhag. So that's what the Rama is talking about. As I explains, the Rama is talking about that if the minhag is that in this town you could build with two kinds of wood, and the first time the house was built with a heavier kind of wood, and now you want to change it the second time to build it with a lighter kind of wood, that according to the Rama, since the minhag in the places you could use a lighter wood, you could use a lighter wood also. Alachas kama v'kama, if the minhag is to only build with a lighter wood, and this house the first time around was built with much heavier wood, shaloi k'fi minhag, and now comes the second time around, And you can't build like the first wood of last time. It's much more expensive. He doesn't want to spend so much money. It's triple the price. I want you to follow the minhag. If that's the case, you're allowed to follow the minhag. The Shach adds over here, and he says that the Beis Yosef and the Bach disagreed with us. And they say this minhag thing could only work if the shutfim are not, if the minhag of the shutfim in this town is not to be makbid on such a thing. And the Bar Heitiv brings the Shach la'alacha. The Nesivos bring the Sma la'alacha. So, Nesivos is later than the Bar Heitiv, but the Maisa is if you're going to follow the Nesivos only quotes the Sma, and the Bar Heitiv only quotes the Shach.
Nafkamina is if the chlal, people aren't makbid.
If people are makbid. Nafkamina is if people are shutfim are makbid zelze.
Shutfim specifically.
Shutfim are makbid that even though the minhag is to do in a certain way,
People will call.
huh?
The minhag of who?
Minhag of shutfim in town that they get into, that the shutfim in town work out their differences regarding things unrelated to the minhag hamokim. So even though the minhag hamokim is to use wood, to use this kind of wood, when it comes to shutfim, the minhag is that you work it out. You can't just pull off the shelf whatever you feel like that's minhag hamokim. Yes, you go to a place. What's minhag hamokim? You walk into a store, and you see beams for foundations, or you see beams the cross beams, and there could be 6 kinds of cross beams. So what's the minhag hamokim? All 6 cross beams, right? Unless law in New York today you can't use wood, huh?
He says the minhag is l'shanis. It sounds like in this kind of situation the minhag is l'shanis. So it's the, I think that's the word that I'm going to use. And the minhag is like if you're rebuilding, you'll change it up.
If the minhag is that you could change it, yeah.
So I'm not making a shutfim, just like stam, or people.
Any case, yeah. By the way, today in New York, Lamosh, you can't use wood b'chlal. They changed the law. So now, if somebody's going to, if a house falls, or if a house is being redone, and there used to be wood, you have to put steel. You're not going to be able to say, you can't use the minhag hamokim and say, I want to go back to what it was before. It's not going to fly. The Mishnahs that Rabbi Eliezer rolls back to the previous discussion about the Rashba. What does the Rashba say? That the people have no shibud zelzeh, right? The people, there's no shibud on the person, there's no shibud mamoini on the guy downstairs or on the guy upstairs towards the other one. There's only a shibud within the house. And the mechaber and sifhei, it seems like it passes like the Rashba. So now, when the house downstairs, when the house falls, there's no more chiyuv on the guy downstairs, on his mamoin, to rebuild for the guy upstairs. There's no chiyuv. That's why he can't be koifa, according to the Rashba. So there's no chiyuv for him to spend money. So Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer asks, there's no chiyuv for him to spend money. How can you say here that there's a shibud on him to spend more money? Or not to save money? If you say there's no shibud mamoini, there's no financial shibud, no shibud mamoin after a fall, so how could it be that the person comes, the person downstairs, the person upstairs is going to come, is going to say, you want to use this kind of wood, which is $10 a pole. And the minhag hamokim, or what it was before was a $25 piece. So I'm causing you to spend an extra $15 more than what you're supposed to. So essentially, there is a shibud moment on you. So that's the question, Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer. I talk that there is such a shibud over here. So he says, no, there is no shibud over here. And the reason, he says, it's still not because of shibud, it's because of a different reason. The reason over here is, there is no shibud. Over here comes from an element of a threat. You come to the guy and you tell him very simple. Either you build it like it was, so I could build my floor on top of it, or I'll build it myself and you're out until you pay me. And that's the halacha. Not because of shibud. Your money is not meshubah to me. Not one penny of your money is meshubah to me. But the land has a shibud to me that I could put a unit on top of your unit. And if you're not going to make a unit in such a way that I could put my unit on top of it the way it was before, I could force you. I could build it myself and charge you later.
Why you went back to the way it was before?
Huh?
I'm not saying that I'm not going to build it. I'm going to build you something not as strong.
So then, no, so that's what he says. He says, no, that's what he's saying. He says, it's not mitzad, he says, but if you're going to build with less, you're going to cause me a hezek. I'm not going to be able to build on top.
You couldn't. It's not be as strong. Who said it has to be as strong as before? There's no shibud money.
There's no shibud, but the shibud there's a shibud on the land that I could put this unit here.
Fine.
I could put a unit.
I'm going to give it to you. It has to be as strong as before. Why is it as strong as before?
I want to do as strong as before. I have, my land has in it a shibud that I could build a unit which, if I would calculate the weight, it would be 10,000 pounds, 20,000 pounds. That's my shibud. Now, you want to build a junky unit under it?
Because he has rights to make the same strong walls.
He has the right to make the same strong wall. He has the right to make the same strong walls. So he says, if you're going to build it lower, I can't place my 20,000 pound unit on top of you. Yeah, now, Kesef HaKachim brings an interesting discussion. What happens if I'm on the second floor, and let's forget about the house falling down. I decide I want to make a partition. I have a big second floor. I don't need such a big place anymore. All the kids are married. I have a 5-bedroom. I want to split it in 2. I'll rent the front. I'll live in the back. Make 2 units. Now I'm adding weight, but I'm not adding weight in construction. I'm adding now, after the house is built, I'm adding weight to the house. The guy downstairs. So he says the guy downstairs could be moiche if it's going to cause now a weakness of the building downstairs. And even though the guy upstairs could bring up as much weight as he wants, and people could come up, and we don't sit with a scale and measure how much weight he puts every time, because that's temporary. If it's something which is kavua, he could be moiche. But that only applies if the damage happens right now. If this is damage that's going to be down the line, l'mashal, that I'm putting a partition now. The house is strong enough to hold everything. Elamai, down the line, the house is sitting on wooden beams, not a foundation of wood. When the wood beams are going to start rotting, so it's going to deteriorate faster. Why? Because if the wood beams are rotting, there's more weight on top of it, it will break faster. So I'm not causing damage now. I'm causing damage that's going to come down the line. In 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when you're going to have to replace the beams under the house. So then he says he can't be moiche now. Why? Because right now, zenen of zedachasa. But down the line, when the beams will start rotting, at that moment it starts becoming a mazik. At that moment he has to remove it. That means he can keep the partition there as long as he wants, until the partition starts damaging. The moment the partition starts damaging, he has to stop.
That's the only weight added is the partition?
Huh?
What about on the second guys, let's say he brings, like you need 2 fridges, 2 this, like more furniture, more...
So that we'll get to it now. What's the definition of permanent? The definition of permanent and temporary is not the definition whether it has wheels or not. Yeah, there's certain things that you're allowed to do. The minhag is you're allowed to bring into your apartment beds, furniture, washing machine, depending which building in New York. It's illegal, but depending on the minhag, huh? Washing machines, dryers, not washing machines, dryers. Depending on the apartment building, some dryers are illegal, and according to law, because those fires over here in Kranites. Also, putting air conditioner units. Yes, so putting air conditioner unit in your window is accepted, right? That's the minhag, unless it's facing the fire escape, in the fire escape window. But putting units on top of the ceiling, on top of the roof, maybe yeah, maybe not. Maybe it causes, you have to see what the minhag is. If it's not accepted and it's a permanent thing that you're adding, you have to have that in mind. If it's going to cause a permanent damage. And today that we look, let's say if you have a condo building, yeah, and we hold that like we spoke in previous shurim, that the guy upstairs is not the full owner of the roof, but the roof is shared property to everybody. And then one person comes and starts putting air conditioning units on top of it in a place which is not supposed to. He adds air conditioning in a section which is not. He's causing damage to everybody else. He might be responsible. Maybe there could be meicha. It depends on you have to look at the situation at the time. If it adds weight or those kinds of damages to the building, then you have to have that in mind when you redo it or when you do it the first time.
Where did you see that?
What?
What you're trying to apply?
Now? This is a side thing.
I'm
Yes.
saying the fact that when the Aleph is only talking about the walls being as strong as you
Kesef HaKachim says about adding more weight.
in general.
Kesef HaKachim.
Objects and stuff.
He says objects, if it's objects temporary versus permanent. That's how he looks at it. He doesn't say the Kesef HaKachim, the only one Kesef HaKachim on the Siman. Now what happens if there's a suffix, if it's going to be mazik or not? The Kesef HaKachim seems to be machriya that the guy downstairs is the muchzak before you start building. But if you already added it, the guy upstairs becomes the muchzak. And therefore he says, make sure to have a shtar. Now, how much weight makes a difference? Shulchan Aruch doesn't say how much weight. If I add 5 pounds, it's already a difference. If I add an extra brick, air conditioner, 70 pounds. The 70 pounds make a difference in a house which the total weight is so much more than that. Yeah. So the Mata Shimon over here says brings machlekes. Interesting. He says some people say, even if it's a small addition in weight, since the Mechaber doesn't mention a difference, even if it's a small addition in weight, it's also a problem. And he brings the other people that hold, no, it's only if it's a significant weight that could make a difference. And the Mata Shimon adds, but regardless, if the minhag is that you could add these kinds of things to the house, that's going to cause weight, that's going to add weight, according to the Raavad, it's mutter. According to Beis Yosef and the Bach and the Shach, etc., it's asur unless the shutfim are not makpid ze al ze. And that's Yisrael, you have more of this, more than that. The people that take out porches, room their houses. It's not so common to do these porches, but if there are, you're adding a lot of weight, structural weight to the side wall. So you have to have that in mind also when you do it. But based on all that, if I actually go and I add support to the building, the cha'ira, according to Svara, should be fine. That means if I want to add, I'm the second floor guy, and I want to add a terrace on top of my second floor. I want to take my roof and convert it into a terrace and add over there more things, or maybe add another bathroom upstairs, or add a kitchen, or whatever it is on the, make a nice terrace on top. And I know that the house can't handle the weight of another third floor. But I bring engineers, and I put put support under the house. I do under the foundation, support the foundations. L'chayra shouldn't be a problem because you're not causing any damage. You're supporting the weight that you want to add. You're adding more strength to the foundation, and that way you could add more than what you were planning. Underpinning. It's called underpinning. Yeah, so the chayre should be fine. Now the Ramah concludes over here, and he brings the Yashayim, which is Rabbeinu Yerucham, that this is only if one person bought the house and one person bought the aliyah, or they were Yerushah together, but if both of them were Zoichem in a hefker, and each one built on it, they could change whatever they want. Why? Because Meikara, each one was able to build whatever he wanted over there. And therefore, now also each one can build whatever he wants. Maybe when they bought it before is one, when each one bought it, or they were Yerushah, is one thing. But if they're both Zoichem and a hefker, they could build it each way they want. So the Ulama Mishpat says, hey, over here also Minhag Oir applies. This only works if the first time around they built it like Minhag Oir. And now they're building it like Minhag Oir, that the change is going to be like Minhag Oir. The first time there was like Minhag Oir. But they can't change now and do something less than Minhag Oir, because Meikara they couldn't have done less than Minhag Oir. Says the whole sort of the Ramah is that Meikara you could have changed it, you could have built differently. He says Meikara you could have only built according to Minhag Oir, according to code, according to legal, according to whichever way you define Minhag Oir. So therefore, now that you want to build again, Yachlu l'shanoisei within the framework of Minhag Oir. You could change it within the framework of Minhag Oir, but not outside the framework of Minhag Oir. The Mishnah that Rabbi Elazar over here adds that it's very simple because the Ramot Take holds like the Rashba, that the moment that there's no shibud mamoini over here, there's no shibud moment, and therefore, if it falls, they go back to the same rights that they had before it fell, before it was built the first time. It just explains what's the logic. Why yochel l'shanoise? Because mechatchila they could have built it if there would be a shibud over here, the new shibud that remains after the house falls, so you can't change it. The reason why you could change it is because there's no shibud. Once there's no shibud, the shibud falls together with the house, so you go back to the status that it was at the moment before the house was built.
And if there's a shibud on what?
If there is a shibud on the mamoin, then you can't just go back to what it was before because the shibud appeared later. You can't change it to less than what it was, even if they were Yerush. He says there must be that they follow the Rashba. Yeah. The Knesset Agdel over here mentions that an interesting thing. He uses the example of a maziva, and he says a maziva is usually built from earth, right? But he says that if somebody wants to build the maziva, whose responsibility is to build the maziva? The guy upstairs. The kuli alma is the responsibility of the guy upstairs. So if the guy upstairs says, I didn't like the maziva last time around. There was earth, it was uncomfortable, there was mud and this. I want to make a good maziva this time. I'm pouring concrete and putting tiles on top. He's talking about not putting rocks. Yeah, putting bricks, putting rocks. He says he's allowed to, even though you're adding in weight. Why? Because this is something which is your obligation to do. You're not adding in something, you're changing something. You're adding something which was your obligation from the onset to do. So being that the maziva can be done with earth, can be done with bricks, you could do it with bricks if you want to do it this time. That's how he brings the name of Marasasan. Huh?
What is this different than anything else?
We're talking about adding weight. You're not allowed to add weight.
Why is this different?
Oh, because over here he said it's not something that you're adding. It's something that it was your obligation milchatchila to make a maziva, and mazivas are being done also with rocks. Therefore, you could use a rock. Just an example.
You're going after the minute.
Huh?
Go after the minute.
Go after a minute, yeah. In סימן קוף Zayin, we're going to jump to קוף Zayin, one seif in קוף Zayin, and with that we're going to be finished. Interesting halacha in סימן קוף Zayin and Sif Beis. And the reason I'm mentioning it now is because I think that when we learned this seif in Kuf Nun Hey, I said I'm going to get to it now, or whatever, I want to complete it now. Kuf Zayin, Sif Beis, over there, if there's a tree that's sitting on the border, on the Meitzar, it belongs to both, even if it leans more towards one of them, and you split the fruits. And the Rama says, but if the tree is fully on one person's property, and even if it's leaning, the branches lean into the second person's property, it's still you follow the trunk, and therefore it belongs to whoever the trunk is fully in his property. What does it mean that it's sitting on the border, on the Meitzar? The Smeh says, when it sits on the Meitzar, the roots go in both directions. So it's taking food and nutrients from Reuven's field and from Shimon's field. Since it's taken from Reuven's field and from Shimon's field, so you have to both of them have a right to split the fruits. And therefore, in such a case, we follow the Yanike. We follow where it absorbs its nutrients from, and since it absorbs from both, we go according to both. And the Smeh says, we discussed this was already mentioned in the Mechaber and Siman Kuf Nun Hey Seif Chavtes, and over there the Smeh says, I already discussed it over there in Sifkat and Samach Zayin, and what does he say over there in Sifkat and Samach Zayin? That even though the Tur in Kuf Nun Hey brings the Tshuva Legoin, that you go after where the branches are leaning, that means if it's ala meitzar, you follow where the branches are. So if branches are towards one side, the fruits will go to that person. If the branches are to the other side, it goes to the other person. If it goes to both, it goes to both. Each one gets whatever branch on top of his head. He says, no, he says, the Smeh says, I already explained in Prisha that this that the Tur brings is not la halacha, it was only discussing a specific location because that's how they did it over there. But otherwise, if you don't have a specific minhag that you follow, that on a tree on the property line, you follow where the branches are, then you split it. And the Aruch HaShulchan follows,
We're after like the ikar of the tree.
You don't go after the ikar of the tree. You go after the sharashim.
So even if it's fully on one side,
No, if it's fully on one side, you go after the ikar. We're talking about if it's on the property line.
on the shirashim, it's the actual.
If the trunk is on the property line.
Where do you see that one?
Huh?
Maybe not. Maybe in the Shoshan you go always after Shoshan.
You're going to get to it in a second. In the Sivis. The Sivis and over here. And the Sivis over there in Kufnun Hay. So now the Aruch HaShulchan says also you follow based on the minhag. If the minhag is to go based on the branches, you go based on the branches. If the minhag is to go based on the where it sits, you go based on the roots, you go based on the roots. Ulama Mishpat is a suffix on it. Okay. What does it mean that it's standing on the property lines? And the Sivis over here in Sifkat and Tezvav says that this only applies when you actually see the tree is sitting on the border. Mamish. At that point, the only way to deal with it is to say that we go, since the roots are going in both directions, so they both split it. But if it's mamish by the border, but it's not on both people's properties, it's only on Reuven's property, then we don't care where the roots are going, we only go based on what we see. We see the tree in Reuven's property, it's Reuven's tree. And all the fruits are Reuven's fruits. Even though it's also taking nutrients from Shimon's field.
Can't Shimon cut up, like from his property?
He could, if the fruits are bothering him, he could cut.
And then the fruits still belong.
Fruits belong to the other person, yeah. Then the Sivis adds that if you know that there's more roots going to Reuven than to Shimon, then Reuven gets more fruits than Shimon. I don't know how to calculate it, but that's what the Sivis writes. And the Aruch HaShulchan, Sifkat Mebei, says, no, you can't calculate percentages and roots. If it's in the middle, it's 50-50, and the roots is only the reason. When it's sitting on one side, it goes to one. When it's sitting on the other side, it goes to the other one. When it's sitting in the middle, if it's on the property line, so over there we don't start calculating anything. We say, once on the property line, we don't start measuring how to split it. Then we say, he's getting from this side, he's getting from this side, so we'll split it 50-50. That's what the Aruch HaShulchan says. We're not going to calculations over here. If you go into calculations, and just adding to the Aruch HaShulchan calculation, you have to also measure circumference of the tree and count how many fruits come on each side of the tree and make a cheshbon how much each person is going to get. The Aruch HaShulchan makes it much simpler. It says the svara of sharashim is only to explain why we do 50-50 in such a scenario. We don't go into discussions. We say, even though maybe the tree is a little bit more, a little bit less, there are more branches on the right, more branches on the left, there's more sunshine on the right, there's more fruits are juicier, 50-50. That's it. With that we conclude Siman Kuf Samach Zayin.